This is Dinar RV News, and today we're diving into one of the most heated topics in Iraq and across investment discussions worldwide, the Iraqi dinar and what its future might hold. People in Iraq are increasingly frustrated with the current situation, with many citizens voicing anger over stalled reforms and unkept promises. Some are even threatening to take drastic measures against government buildings, just as happened in Malaysia. The frustration stems from a belief that bureaucrats are delaying reforms while everyday citizens struggle in poverty. Among the most controversial issues is the so-called Delete the Zeros program, and ongoing speculation about a potential currency revaluation. Officials have been vague about what deleting the zeros actually means, leaving many Iraqis confused and angry. In this video, we'll break down what these changes could mean, what is fact versus speculation, and how the value of the IQD truly works. The Iraqi Dinar, or IQD, is the official currency of Iraq. For years, it has been the subject of speculation and debate, especially among those who follow global currency movements. Supporters believe the dinar has the potential to appreciate, especially if Iraq's political and economic climate becomes more stable. Recently, some conversations have turned to what is being described as a new contract rate, which has fueled both curiosity and excitement. This supposed rate refers to the possibility of the IQD reaching a higher exchange value in the future, sparking questions about how much each note might really be worth. To understand whether these discussions are realistic, we need to look at past and present rates, the country's economic fundamentals, and how global standards affect currency flows in and out of Iraq. Historically, the dinar has held a very low value compared to stronger global currencies like the US dollar or the euro. Part of this is due to decades of conflict, sanctions, corruption, and instability. However, Iraq's large oil reserves and increased production in recent years give some reason for optimism. Oil is Iraq's most significant source of revenue, and as global demand continues, it directly supports the country's economy. Foreign investment has also begun to trickle in, which could help Iraq rebuild and modernize. Still, there are major hurdles. Iraq is under pressure from both the United States and neighboring Iran, which complicates policy decisions. The U.S. Treasury has already slowed the transfer of U.S. dollars into Iraq because of concerns about compliance with international banking rules. These rules are designed to track currency flows and prevent U.S. dollars from reaching places like Iran or Syria, and Iraq is learning how strict these standards can be. Now, let's do a quick thought experiment to illustrate what a revaluation could mean. Imagine the IQD rises to a rate of $3 per note. If someone held 10,000 dinar, their value could, in theory, rise to 30,000. This kind of possibility explains why so many discussions have emerged around the dinar. However, it's important to stress that such calculations are purely hypothetical. Current exchange rates show a very different picture. At present, a 25,000 dinar note converts to only about 19. That means the printed or nominal value of the note doesn't match its actual worth in foreign currency markets. This is why understanding nominal versus real value is so important. It prevents people from confusing a note's face value with its true purchasing power. The phrase, delete the zeros, has been a source of major confusion. On the surface, it sounds like Iraq could instantly raise the value of its currency by removing 3 zeros from its notes. For example, a 25,000 dinar note would simply become 25 dinar, but the actual exchange value would remain the same if the rate against the dollar doesn't change. In other words, the note would look smaller in number, but it would still equal around 19. This is why experts caution that deleting zeros is not the same as a true revaluation. It's more about simplifying the currency for easier use in daily transactions. Without broader economic reforms and growth, deleting zeros alone does not increase purchasing power for Iraqis or for foreign holders of the currency. For Iraqi citizens, this distinction matters greatly. Many live under extremely difficult conditions, where every dinar counts. If the government changes the notes without strengthening the economy, people could feel muzzled, believing they suddenly have more money when in fact their buying power hasn't improved. Imagine walking into a store after the reform and seeing lower numbers on price tags, but realizing that your new notes buy the exact same amount as before. The illusion of wealth without real change can be frustrating and damaging to trust. This is one of the reasons why so many Iraqis feel betrayed when leaders talk about reforms without delivering real improvements in daily life. When it comes to investors outside Iraq, the picture is just as complex. Some see Iraq's reforms as a chance to make profit by holding dinar. But again, the key lies in whether real economic growth supports the currency. Simply changing numbers on paper doesn't translate into increased value in international markets. Growth in oil revenues, diversification of the economy, political stability, and international cooperation are the kinds of factors that can lead to a stronger dinar over time. Without these fundamentals, any talk of massive revaluation remains speculation. That's why it's essential for observers to separate rumors from actual economic signals. Let's take a closer look at the math behind nominal value and why it's so often misunderstood. The nominal value of a note is the number printed on its face. For example, a 25,000 dinar note carries that number officially, but if the exchange rate is about ₹0.76 against the US dollar, the real conversion comes out to only about the 19. This shows the gap between what's printed and what it's worth. If Iraq deletes zeros and reprints the note as 25 dinar at the same exchange rate, it still converts to 19. The reality doesn't change unless the exchange rate itself rises. That increase would only come from stronger economic conditions, not from renaming or redesigning the currency. Economic fundamentals like inflation, growth, and political reform are what truly drive a currency's value. High inflation reduces purchasing power, while strong growth can strengthen a currency. Iraq is working to balance these issues while facing challenges such as corruption, unemployment, and dependence on oil revenues. Global oil prices also play a big role since they directly affect Iraq's income. A rise in oil prices could improve the government's ability to manage debt, invest in infrastructure, and strengthen the dinar. On the other hand, falling prices could create budget deficits and weaken confidence in the currency. These ups and downs remind us that currency value is never just about the notes themselves, but about the wider picture of the economy that issues them. International relations are another factor. Iraq is balancing its ties with both the United States and Iran, and this affects how its financial system operates. Better relations with major economies could lead to more investment and trade opportunities, which in turn would strengthen the dinar. However, tensions or instability could have the opposite effect, limiting Iraq's access to foreign currency reserves and hurting its international credibility. The country is at a crossroads, needing to prove it can follow global banking standards while still navigating complex regional politics. For those following the dinar closely, staying informed is crucial. News about the IQD often circulates quickly, but not all of it is reliable. People who want to track developments should focus on official announcements and real economic indicators, not rumors. This helps avoid misunderstandings about what reforms actually mean. For example, deleting zeros might seem like a sudden revaluation, but as we've explained, it does not change real value unless supported by deeper reforms. Observers need to keep this in mind when they hear bold claims about overnight wealth from holding dinar. For Iraq's population, the hope is that reforms will eventually lead to genuine improvements in daily life. The long-term challenge is to build a stable economy that provides opportunities, reduces poverty, and creates confidence in the currency. Until then, talk of instant gains from currency changes can only create disappointment if the underlying reality doesn't match. This is why understanding the difference between nominal value and true value is so important, not just for investors but for Iraqis themselves. It prevents confusion and highlights the need for real progress rather than cosmetic changes. In conclusion, the story of the IQD revaluation is about more than numbers on a banknote. It is tied to Iraq's political stability, economic growth, oil revenues, and ability to meet international standards. The Delete the Zeros program may simplify the currency system, but it does not automatically mean greater wealth for citizens or investors. The real test is whether Iraq can strengthen its economy in a lasting way. Until then, the value of the dinar remains a reflection of broader challenges and opportunities facing the country.